Surviving is the same thing as winning. By Please Dial 123. Chapter 17. Break my bones, not my heart. Sunday bloomed beautiful and sunny, and it was nice and quiet as Kakashi carefully went over their ninjutsu repertoire. A genin found him early with a message that made Kakashi sigh. Their training that morning was kept very light and easy, so he didn't wear his students out. As the morning faded into the afternoon, that they moved to a pretty little open training ground on the west side of the village. "What's going on?" Sakura asked, eyes narrowed suspiciously at the sidelines of the field. The Hokage gave a cheerful wave, pipe tucked in his teeth and hat shading him from the sun as he sat on a rock. Umino stood beside him, attentive but friendly, with a suspicious clipboard in hand. "Oh, they are just on a break." Kakashi smiled. "Hokage-sama said this was such a nice sunny spot to relax for a few minutes. He promised not to get in our way." Naruto, who was waving enthusiastically back at the two, offered Kakashi a wide grin. "That's bullshit!" the blonde beamed. "Iruka-sensei has his clipboard!" "The clipboard?" Sasuke asked, peering across the distance. "Yes," Sakura said solemnly. "Oh? Is there something special about his clipboard?" Kakashi asked, curious. "It means he's gonna be on Genji," Naruto said. "It's his real Mark's clipboard," Sakura further explained. "He only used it for activities he said we weren't getting graded on, but we all knew they were really important."
"It has the little sticker," Sasuke grumbled. "It's how you tell."
Kakashi squinted at them, but from this distance, he could only make out a blob of color on the back of the clipboard. It could have been a sticker, he guessed. "Whoa," Kakashi said. "I guess that means our practice has to be extra intense." They all groaned subtly. "Now, what shall we do?" Kakashi tapped his chin as if thoughtful. "Maybe some genjutsu matches? No, that's too boring for an audience. Some trap displays? No, that usually ends up covering the whole field with smoke. How about sparring?" They looked at him like he was a wild animal huddling closer together during his little drama act. When he beamed cheerfully at them, they shuddered. "Let's do some team sparring," Kakashi nodded. "You three against me." "We do that all the time," Naruto said suspiciously, like there was a trap to it. "Well, let's make it interesting then. No limits," Kakashi declared with a sly smile. "Genjutsu, taijutsu, ninjutsu, traps, anything you want." They looked at one another in surprise. Then their eyes darted to Umino and the Hokage, but especially the clipboard. Such smart little students. "What's the goal?" Sasuke grunted, feet subtly bracing. "Breakdown," Kakashi smiled. "Fight until either I or all of you are incapacitated." They winced again, knowing how many bruises that was going to mean. But there was glitter in their eyes, something like excitement. "Do we get time to plan?" Sakura asked. Sometimes if he was feeling generous, he gave them a moment to strategize. "Nope! Begin!" They blinked in bewilderment, but were far too used to him. They scattered, a bloom of clones rising to distract him as they retreated to a more strategic point. Kakashi smiled after them. Near the edge of the field, 3 clones peeled off of Umino and set off to tail the students. They would sense it, but he was sure they would be smart enough to ignore clones that definitely weren't Kakashi's. Sakura looked like... Well, she looked like Sakura, all short pink hair and fiery green eyes. Her knuckle dusters gleamed in the light, and she had that set look on her face he knew meant he would have to put her down hard to keep her down. "Ma, you look so fierce!" Kakashi smiled. Her nose twitched, and her eyes narrowed as she slid more firmly into the opening stance of the Iron Fist style. "Do you even need the knuckle dusters anymore?" He smiled as he slid his feet apart. She didn't answer, merely threw herself at him. He dodged the throw by a hair's width with minimal movement, efficiently moving just out of the way. Sakura came at him immediately again, already recovering from the miss and throwing her heel up at his stomach. And so their dance began, Kakashi dodging by a hair's width every time, and Sakura keeping her moves tightly controlled so she didn't overextend with each miss. They stuck close up and personal, and Kakashi had to use his open palm to deflect a few elbow throws. Her hits, which were hard, could not be caught safely anymore, and she'd gotten better at her efficiency. Even her openings were more dangerous to go after in fear of retaliation. Kakashi knew he could easily end up with broken bones here. "Aim for the finals," Kakashi reminded, "and where it hurts." "I am!" Sakura growled. "That blow would have glanced off my ribs, maybe inconvenient, but no real harm," Kakashi corrected. "It would have broke them," Sakura said with a hint of teeth. Just to check, he deflected one of her blows toward the ground and watched the stone crater beneath her. "Good," Kakashi said. "You're getting better at that." Sakura had amazing chakra control, just like of her birth, and it had taken her a while to realize she was unconsciously using it in her hits, let alone could do that purposefully. The technicalities of Tsunade's super strength weren't really a secret inside of Konoha for the fact that no one else had had the control or will to master it. Most shinobi used chakra to augment their muscles, but no one had the control necessary to release it from those muscles in a split second with focus. But Sakura, well, Kakashi thought Sakura had a good chance. Sakura came at his face with a vicious uppercut that clipped his jaw just the slightest. He felt the bruise blooming immediately as he lunged back. Kakashi ducked, barely clearing Naruto's leg, and then rolled out of the way of the scythe point that followed him. Naruto was a whirlwind of color and attacks and noise as he gave little war cries. If not for how scary unpredictable he was, Kakashi would have taunted him for so much noise and color, but that was a part of the unpredictable Uzumaki Naruto style. He got up in his opponent's face, and there was no escaping him in any way, senses or otherwise. A clone spun in, wind spinning with him to kick up dust and half-blind Kakashi. Kakashi lunged out of the way, blinking dust away, and dodged a punch from Sakura. The chain that came for his throat behind the bunch drove him straight into a wall of fire. If not for a quick substitute, he would have burned like the log now in his place. As it was, his flak jacket smoked faintly. Sakura and Naruto came at him again, perfectly in tandem, not getting tripped up in either one's movement. Sasuke used Sakura as a springboard mid-fight and came at Kakashi from above. Kakashi nearly decapitated himself by dodging straight into a wall of ninja wire. It was only his own quick wits and flexibility that got him through Naruto's masterful web of ninja wire. Well, mostly through. He winced at the beading of blood on his now exposed arm, sleeve chopped straight off. When he said spiderweb, he meant spiderweb. The wire was not just meant to cut, but to capture, and one loop had gotten around his arm and started tightening before he'd gotten out. Wire that sharp could take off a limb if not careful. Kakashi looked at his students and found them vanished. He twitched his nose, stretched his senses, and... there! He dodged Naruto by a hair's width as the boy and his clones came upon him like a whirlwind. Kakashi stumbled, once, twice, dismissed the genjutsu, and regained his balance to throw two clones straight into their own wire trap, but... oh! Sasuke lit the wild wire contraption on fire, fire chakra racing down the lines. Kakashi realized he was half a step into the web and retreated. Or tried to. Hands of earth rose up and clamped on his legs. As hard and unyielding as stone, Sakura followed her jutsus, hammer slipping out of the earth like it was water and a mad grin on her face. Fire coming around him, earth holding him still, a hammer coming for his face from below, and a wind clone coming at him from above with a scythe. Oh, and look, there's Sasuke coming in from an angle with his Satsuma! Kakashi charged his whole body with lightning. The earth fragmented and shattered. He reached up and grasped the clone, spinning them to switch places, and hurling said clone at the hammer blow coming for its face as he threw himself into the air clear of the fire and Sasuke's attack. He admitted to being impressed, as Sakura redirected her blow mid-swing and let the clone grab the hammer instead of smashing onto it. She twirled, and the clone took all the momentum from the hammer before being thrown straight back up. Sasuke used the clone as a springboard to come hurtling up at the retreating Kakashi. Sakura then dove back into the earth like it was a pool and not solid ground as the fire consumed the space they had been standing. Kakashi kicked Sasuke off into a tree as he was falling back to save ground, started to really strategize. The kids had kept him on his toes long enough to stop him from really considering a plan of action. And there on the ground he was aiming at was a spike trap! Lovely! The medic asked no questions as she patched his team up. Naruto whined under her hands, but she said nothing, merely snapped his dislocated shoulder back into place and healed his broken collarbone. The array of bruises and cuts on his body were already healing. Sasuke, suffering harsh lightning burns up both arms and his chest, and a twisted ankle didn't make any noise, but his pained face said enough for him. Sakura, with 2 broken wrists, a couple broken ribs, and a concussion, laughed at them and called them pansies for where she lay in the cracked earth. When the medic got to Kakashi himself, he smiled a faint hello and watched the way she handled his broken femur. He was quite sure she'd survived in Anbu with him many, many years ago. He said nothing of this to her, and she didn't acknowledge him as she healed an injury that should have still required a cast, even with chakra healing, within 20 minutes. Kakashi was impressed, not just for her skill, but that the Hokage had asked them to be fully patched up. Well, not that surprised, he supposed. He'd asked for an all-out battle, and had to be responsible for what happened during it.
Sakura is the frontline fighter, the heavy hitter, Umino muttered, looking at his clipboard as if he couldn't understand it. She broke my femur with 1 hit, Kakashi grinned at the man. Hardest bone in the body, and snap! I pegged her as a genjutsu specialist or medic, Umino said faintly, back in the academy. Kakashi heard the unspoken, I'm rarely wrong, which was true. Umino was a fantastic profiler, especially for the academy students. He was the one who organized the teams every year, making sure those who truly would succeed were paired with students of like motivation and skill. There was a reason little civilian-raised Haruno Sagara was on a team with the last Uchiha and the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Skill-wise, I would have thought the same, Kakashi said, at first. But her personality is too strong to be a supporting role. She's got a temper and a viciousness to her that matches her brute strength. I still hadn't had her pegged a taijutsu master, Umino chuckled. Oh well, I have to be wrong sometimes, I suppose. I'm glad you figured out her skill set. Kakashi nodded, watching as Naruto chatted with the Hokage excitedly, Sakura at his side sunbathing. Sasuke had slipped off a few minutes prior after a few words from the Hokage, and Kakashi only faintly wondered where he was off to. Oh, Naruto! Umino smiled bright and happy. He's done so well with his clones, and the way he's using his wind nature. He's a force of nature, Kakashi agreed. Thanks to you too, Sensei. His tribes have gained an edge they never had before. I'm proud of him, Umino smiled. Of all of them. But can you tell me if there is a reason Sasuke keeps using fire instead of his lightning nature chakra? Kakashi gave him a sly grin. He hasn't realized his nature isn't fire but lightning yet. And a certain sensei hasn't seen fit to correct him. Umino raised her brow, lips twitching into a grin. I have to let the kids learn some things on their own. He beamed. Umino laughed loud enough to make the kids look over at him. And up there was Sasuke, carrying a large stack of bentos. Kakashi-sensei! Iruka-sensei! Chichi got us lunch! Naruto hollered. Naruto was already opening the bentos by the time Umino and him wandered over. The Hokage smiled at him as the kids started to squabble over something. That was a good showing, the Hokage smiled at him. I'd say it was almost a draw. I was the last man standing, Kakashi said lightly. With a broken femur and more than a few minor injuries, the Hokage remarked. For a team of Genin to challenge someone like yourself and manage so well. Kakashi heard what went unsaid. Yes, some of it could be contributed to familiarity with his fighting, but that was a double-edged sword. They knew his fighting style, but he had taught them theirs, and they had still used it well against him. And Kakashi knew despite his title as Jonin, he was not the average Jonin. He'd been an Anbu commander and retired due to politics and mental well-being, not lack of skill or injury. Kakashi was listed as an S-rank ninja in the bingo book, and he'd earned that rank. He wondered idly, as he got offered a battle from Sakura, what this team could do against a regular Jonin. They could probably bring one down easily if they worked together. He smiled, vicious and proud. Guy, it's 6 a.m., Kakashi groaned. This was becoming a disturbing pattern. Getting woken up early by others. Guy grinned at him from the edge of the bed where he had seated himself. I have Lee waking Naruto and Sasuke. Sakura was already in the kitchen making tea, so Tenten and Neji have joined her. You will be the last to wake, rival.
Kakashi groaned and half fell out of the bed. He was feeling the strain of their spar yesterday, and it did make him smile. Guy held out his shirt, and Kakashi took it, dragging it over his head.
A nice array of bruises,
Guy said, a tad quieter, eyeing Kakashi carefully.
A fight?
Sparred with the kids all out yesterday. Kakashi smiled at him.
They did good.
Guy brightened and clapped his shoulder before disappearing down the hall as Kakashi dug socks out from under his bed. Kakashi dragged himself into the kitchen to find Naruto making breakfast with his eyes closed, looking to be asleep even as he held a frying pan. Sasuke was beside him, looking quite grumpy. Sakura, meanwhile, was sitting at the table with Tenten, looking fresh and happy. Kakashi aided morning people. How did they have the energy? Why are we awake so early, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto groaned without opening his eyes. It's only an hour earlier than we usually wake, Sakura pointed out. Sasuke gave a grunt that could have been a fuck you. But I'm sore, Naruto groaned. I thought Sensei would be super nice and let us sleep in after yesterday.
No rest for my cute little students, Kakashi said. Not with the exam so close.
They all groaned as Team Guy watched them with looks of mild confusion. Sakura and Naruto had food laid out promptly, squeezing in extra sets for the other team, and everyone dug in with enthusiasm. Kakashi took his food to the veranda with Guy as the kids took up the whole table.
I'm stealing your students for the morning, my rival,
Guy announced around mouthfuls of rice.
I heard about your spars with the younger teams last week, and my team could use similar experience.
Sounds good, Kakashi said. After breakfast, Sasuke and Lee cleaned up, Lee tearfully and Sasuke with accepted sullenness at being forced to endure the other boys' cheerfulness at full volume so early.
Have fun,
Kakashi waved off the kids as they all piled out the door. Sakura gave him an enthusiastic wave, already hopping foot to foot while Naruto and Sasuke sent him identical death glares. He'd owe them that cool jutsu this afternoon for putting up with Team Guy. Then Guy was dragging him out, shouting about youth.
Now, what did you rope Guy into distracting my kids for? Kakashi asked the guardian. If you wanted to get me alone, all you had to do was ask Genma.
Genma rolled his eyes as he slipped out of the shadows.
I did ask. I asked Guy.
Kakashi laughed and invited him in silently. Genma followed him into the house, towing his sandals off and following Kakashi to the dining room. Kakashi fetched the tea Sakura had helpfully left for him and poured them in a cup.
What do you need help with? Kakashi asked.
Who says I need help? Kakashi raised a brow at him, and Genma sighed, pulling out a scroll. He unrolled it across the table, and Kakashi leaned over to see a seal layout.
The barrier seals?
Kakashi asked, tilting his head.
We're trying to buffer them up, make them stronger. Standard maintenance, of course.
Of course, Kakashi echoed.
I take it you went to Jiraiya already?
Yeah, I asked the kids to look over them yesterday, too, just for study at least.
We're just covering all bases, and I know you're better at offensive sealing.
Kakashi nodded faintly. Kushina hadn't had time to teach him a lot, but she had taught him some, and Minato had also given him lessons, and both had used seals for offense more than defense. But you know what they say, the best defense is a good offense. Kakashi also idly thought of Hayate injured and alone, bleeding out on their own soil.
Let's take a look.